stabilization branch differs sharply from that the other two. The other two means distribution and allocation, public and private, or between alternative private ones. Rather, it is with maintaining a higher level of resource utilization and a stable value of money. Now, this stabilization branch is related to the maintenance of high level of resource utilization. That means how to utilize the resources in a more optimal manner. That is the problem of every economy and a government. So, whenever the resources are not properly utilized, then there will be instability in the economy. So, what do we have to do is that the stabilization branch aims at high level of resource utilization and a stable value of money, because if the value of money will fluctuate, then also the economy is undergoing destabilization. So, we have to maintain the stable value of money. Now, though the newest of our three branches of budget policy, the stabilization branch has been in the limelight during the last 20 years. The problem of compensatory finance was posed first by the depression of the 30s and recast subsequently by the inflation pressure of the war and the years that followed. Now, Musgrave has pointed out to the problem of compensatory finance कि सबसे पहले जब 1929 में डिप्रेशन हुआ and it occurred the whole world, it affected the whole world, then John Maynard Keynes talked about the problem of compensatory finance, because the depression is a symbol of economy going down, or the lowering down of income, lowering down of employment, and fall in the prices. So it's a kind of lockdown or shutdown of the industries. And in that kind of scenario, if the government wants to come and interfere and recorrect the situation of depression, then the government has to inject more money into the economy so that the people's demand increase, and then automatically if the demand will increase, then we want more supply to be introduced, the production to increase, and automatically that kind of depression situation can be corrected. That is called the compensatory finance, that you want to finance, you want to compensate that loss in the finance which has occurred due to depression by injecting more money into circulation. And then the inflationary pressure of the war also, which followed after the Second World War, as we know, 1939 to 45. So that way, it's all these in destabilization process, once in the form of, you can say, cyclical fluctuations occurring and impacting the economy in the form of depression or boom or the inflation. These are all the cyclical fluctuations which disturbs the economic growth process, which the creates the problems, and it brings forth the role of the government. So that is how you can talk about the historical fact that how the need for this kind of branch arose because of the Great Depression, followed by the inflation pressure of the war. Now, there is little reason to expect that future decades will provide a more stable setting unless appropriate policies are undertaken. Even if the shadows of war would pass, the problem of instability will remain. A free economy, if uncontrolled, tends towards more or less drastic fluctuations in prices and employment, and apart from relatively short term swings, maladjustments of a secular sort may arise towards unemployment or inflation from high employment and price stability. Now, what we are trying to prove through these lines is that the future decades will provide a more stable setting only when the appropriate policies are undertaken. If we do not take appropriate policies, if the government does not interfere with the appropriate monetary and fiscal policies, then there is little reason to expect that future decades will provide a more stable setting. That means the instability cannot be turned into stability. And stability requires appropriate policies to be undertaken. And that is what Musgrave tried to point out, that the shadows of war should pass. Maybe the war ends and everything becomes normal. But the long term impact of that war, which has been produced on the economy and its finances, creating the problem of instability, will remain. And then free market economy, if we talk about the market forces left freely to operate without the government interference, then what will happen? The free economy, if uncontrolled, that means if you are letting the market forces freely to operate in the economy without any control mechanism by the government, then it will create fluctuations. Either it will create excess demand situation or it will create excess supply situation. Automatically, if it is excess demand situation, it will create a rise in the prices, and hence the producers will benefit and they will increase the production and employment will rise. And that way it will be an inflationary rise, and inflation, if uncontrolled, is going to impact the fluctuation. Similarly, अगर हम बात कर रहे हैं कि excess supply की, then automatically the prices will fall. The producers will shut down their production because already the excess supply is there. They will retrench the workers, so it's a creation of unemployment situation. So these kinds of maladjustments in the supply and demand in terms of market forces may arise towards what? These kinds of unstable situations, either unemployment or inflation from price stability. That means even if, like, if you remember JB says law of markets, which says that supply creates its own demand. Now in this kind of situation, says law stands untrue, because it creates supply which is either in excess or in lesser than the demand. It's not that supply creates its own demand. There are market forces, if left free to operate, will never restore equilibrium, as Keynes said, and Keynes tried to show it through the depression reasons which had occurred the whole world, that it was lack of effective demand which created depression. Even in a country like US, where people are considered to be wealthy and rich enough, they also resulted in a lack of effective demand. That means their demand went off drastically, because जो rich people हैं उनकी marginal propensity to consume कम होती जाती है और saving propensity बढ़ती जाती है. So in that kind of scenario, it's a kind of depression situation which is creating uh, instability. So the government has to be called for in this kind of situation. I hope you all are understanding all this, because on the screen I can't say see your face reactions. But anyway, you can say yes or no. No one can predict whether the bias in the years ahead will be towards inflation or deflation. These are two cyclical extreme situations. Much depends on the outlook for peace and war and on the resulting level of military expenditures in the budget. In any case, there is little reason to expect that stabilization policy will become, while much has been said in recent years about the strength of built-in stabilizer, these remain to be tested. ये बिल्ट इन स्टेबलाइजर का कंसेप्ट भी है पब्लिक फाइनेंस में, जिसमें ये कहा गया कि इकोनॉमी में ऑटोमेटिक एडजस्टमेंट मैकेनिज्म्स होते हैं, एंड दैट इज व्हाई इफ देयर इज इंस्टेबिलिटी, there are built-in stabilizers which are going to create a stability, and there will not be a problem of instability. But then we have to empirically test that कि क्या ये बिल्ट इन स्टेबलाइजर्स उतने ही इफेक्टिव हैं in terms of war situation, in terms of famine situation, in terms of depression situation. So that is a reason to analyze. At the same time, the social climate grows less tolerant towards the hardships of unemployment, and similar attitudes may develop with regard to inflation. Now, what happens if unemployment persists for a long term in the economy? Then people who become unemployed, who lose the source of the survival, will face hardships, will undergo the problems. And that is why once they have faced those hardships, they become less tolerant towards the policies. Social climate grows less tolerant. That means they will be dissatisfied with the government, they will be going into depression, they will be going into social problems, they will generate crimes, like these kinds of situations which can be called economic and social problems are generated through the hardships of unemployment. That is why whenever any government comes in power and it wants to seek more votes from the people, then it tries to make the social climate more tolerant towards the employment, so that the people feel happy that they have a source of employment. And if they will not have that source of employment, they will be going against the government, they will not vote for the government. So that is why the social climate needs to be cohesive to the government, and for that process the government has to see that the unemployment may not result. And similarly, inflation is another cyclical fluctuation. If inflation occurs in large numbers, double digit inflation, then what happens? It's not good for the economic development. There is a quotation which you must have studied in your BA second year somewhere, that the mild rate of inflation is helpful for the economic development of the country, right? How? Because if the inflation is in a mild rate, then the producers are going to be motivated to produce more because of the profits which they foresee in terms of price rise. But then after a certain point, the producers are also consumers. So what happens? And there is a circular flow of product and income operating in the economy, which you must have studied in national income, right? So there is a household sector and there is a production sector, and they both are related to each other. So whatever is resulting in terms of GNP in the production sector is automatically going to be provided to the factors of production in terms of GNI, which is gross national income. So whenever there is a disturbance in these two, then the inflation will result in, and ultimately the producers are also consumers, which is going to affect their economic development and economic satisfaction, and that way it is going to adversely affect the producers also. So it is of paramount importance for the success of free economic systems to develop compensatory measures. That means you have to develop those measures which can be taken by the government to compensate those losses, those fluctuations which are occurring due to free economic systems, due to market economy, which can maintain high employment when private economic activity threatens to be taken, and which can maintain price level stability when demand threatens to exceed available supplies. So this is a kind of disequilibrium situation. If this occurs, then automatically, if the private sector is going to be benefiting at the cost of the general people, because it's a kind of capitalist system flourishing at the cost of labor class. So what will happen? There will be exploitation, there will be class conflicts, there will be strikes, there will be lockouts, which is a kind of instability situation. So the government has to pitch in there with the compensatory measures so that it can control the private sector and its economic growth, and not at the cost of the labor class. Now, what are the underlying principles of the compensatory finance? Because we have been logically proving that the existence of the state is essential. The state has to perform these functions for the economic and social welfare. So, what are the principles which it should follow? If you see, the basic logic of compensatory finance is simple enough and may be summarized in a few rules. Number one, if involuntary unemployment prevails, एक होता है voluntary unemployment और एक होता है involuntary unemployment. Can you tell me the difference? Any one of you can unmute your mic and tell me what do you understand by the two terms of voluntary unemployment and involuntary unemployment? Tell me. I think all of you are PG students, so you must know this is a basic term कि अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट के दो टाइप्स होते हैं, एक वॉलेंट्री होता है और एक इनवॉलेंट्री होता है. Yes, very good answer, Diksha. It's good that you are saying that. Now, somebody else can tell me about involuntary unemployment. It is true, voluntary unemployment, as she said, that it is by choice. Like you want to be unemployed because you don't prefer to be employed, you don't want to go out and work.
Ma'am, involuntary unemployment occurs when a person is able to work and is as well as willing to work at a given wage rate, but that person is not getting a job.
Good. It's also a very good answer, Akriti, that involuntary unemployment is when a person is willing to work and has the ability to work, but he is not able to find the job as per his ability or willingness, then it will be called involuntary unemployment. Now, which type of unemployment is dangerous is involuntary unemployment. बिकॉज जो वॉलेंट्री अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट है वो तो उसने अपनी मर्जी से अनएम्प्लॉयड है, वो तो उसमें सरकार का कोई दोष नहीं है, राइट. बट अगर इनवॉलेंट्री अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट है, मतलब लोग चाहते हैं, उनके पास विलिंगनेस भी है और एबिलिटी भी है जॉब करने की, लेकिन उनको जॉब नहीं मिल रहा है, देन व्हाट विल हैपन if this kind of unemployment prevails, then increase the level of demand. ये हमें एक अंडरलाइन प्रिंसिपल है जो ध्यान में रखना है कि कंपेंसेटरी फाइनेंस कैसे इंट्रोड्यूस होता है. यहाँ पे गवर्नमेंट क्या कर सकती है टू स्टॉप दिस इनवॉलेंट्री अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट. द गवर्नमेंट हैज टू इंक्रीज द लेवल ऑफ डिमांड, ताकि लोगों का हाथ में डिमांड ज्यादा आए, लोगों के पास पैसा ज्यादा आए, और so as to adjust aggregate expenditures upward to the value of output produced at full employment. That means automatically you compensate that those people. Otherwise, what will happen? The level of demand will go down, the prices will go down, automatically the profits of the producers will decrease, and so they will shut down their production and more involuntary unemployment will prevail and generate. So to stop that situation, the government has to increase the level of demand by injecting, by adopting compensatory finance, more money into circulation, so that people's aggregate expenditure goes up. And when their expenditure goes up in terms of demand, then automatically the producers will feel motivated to increase the value of output, employment will increase, and it will remove this situation of involuntary unemployment. So that is the basic logic of compensatory finance with rule number 1. Now the second problem is inflation. अगर इन्फ्लेशन प्रिवेल करता है तो आप कंपेंसेटरी फाइनेंस को कैसे इंट्रोड्यूस करते हो, कौन सा रूल स्टेट लगाना की कोशिश करता है. नाउ वी विल डू द रिवर्स, बिकॉज पहली चीज है इन्फ्लेशन कब होता है, what is the reason of inflation, how will you identify that the economy is facing inflation. Can anybody answer this question? Anybody else than Diksha and Akriti, please. If inflation prevails, how will you recognize that the inflation is there in the economy? And these are all the important terms which are important for your competitive examinations also. How will you recognize that the inflation prevails? Anybody else?
मैम इकोनॉमी में मनी सप्लाई ज्यादा हो जाती है.
इन्फ्लेशन में, इन्फ्लेशन का पहला इंडिकेटर क्या होता है?
मैम राइज इन प्राइस.
हाँ, राइज इन प्राइस, राइट. सो दैट मीन्स कि राइज इन प्राइस क्यों हो रहा है? क्योंकि डिमांड बढ़ी है ना. तो अगर आपने कंपेंसेटरी फाइनेंस लगाया और मान लो कहीं पे कंट्रोल नहीं किया, तो क्या होगा? डिमांड बढ़ जाएगी, डिमांड बढ़ती जाएगी, प्राइसेस भी बढ़ते जाएंगे और इन्फ्लेशन हो जाएगा. एंड अभी अभी मैंने थोड़ी देर पहले ये बताया इन्फ्लेशन एक माइल्ड रेट में होता है तो वो अच्छा होता है, बट इफ इट गोज बियॉन्ड अ सर्टेन लेवल देन इट इज harmful for the producers because they are also ultimately a consumer. So in that situation, what is the ideal role of the government is to reduce the level of demand so as to adjust aggregate expenditures downward, when automatically if you will snatch away their excess money in circulation by taxing them. Taxation is one of the fiscal policy instruments. So what the government can do? The government can put on more taxes on the people so that their extra income can be taken back by the government. Automatically their demand will lower, and if their demand will be falling, aggregate expenditures will be falling because they don't have that much money now. They are paying more taxes. So personal disposable income will be less now because that will be deducted, the personal income will be deducted by that tax amount to the value of output measures in current rather than rising prices. So, according to the stability situation, the government has to adopt different rules, different mechanisms of compensatory finance. In first situation, the government has to adopt, in one word you can say, अगर हम मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी में जाएं तो आपको क्रेडिट एक्सपेंशन पॉलिसीज अपनानी होंगी और इन्फ्लेशन में क्रेडिट कंट्रोल अपनानी होगी. इसी तरह अगर हम फिस्कल पॉलिसी में जाएं तो इन्फ्लेशन है तो आपको टैक्सेशन बढ़ाना होगा, और अगर अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट है तो आपको टैक्स कम करना होगा या पब्लिक एक्सपेंडिचर बढ़ाना होगा. सो you have to, when you are discussing these rules, then please try to give one example to explain your point. For example, in the second case, you can explain this by giving the reference of taxes. कि अगर हम टैक्सेस को ऑटोमेटिकली बढ़ा देंगे तो जो लोगों के हाथ में पर्सनल डिस्पोजेबल इनकम है वो कम हो जाएगी. ऑटोमेटिकली देयर कंजम्पशन विल डिक्लाइन and aggregate expenditure will decline, their demand will decline, and the inflation can be controlled to a certain extent. And the third rule, if full employment and price level stability prevail, that means there is no problem of inflation and there is no problem of involuntary unemployment. आपने ये दोनों problems को remove कर दिया, so we come to the point. Then we have to maintain the aggregate level of money expenditures to promote unemployment and to prevent unemployment and inflation. तो ये भी अब ये compensatory finance का ही काम है कि अगर आपकी ये दोनों situations हैं, मतलब full employment भी है और price level stability भी है, so the role of the government is to prevent unemployment and inflation to come in the economy and disturb the economy in terms of cyclical fluctuations, trade cycle fluctuations जिसको कहते हैं. उसी का एक्सप्लेनेशन आपकी नेक्स्ट स्लाइड में दिया हुआ है. फिस्कल पॉलिसी में बी यूज्ड टू इंक्रीज द एग्रीगेट लेवल ऑफ, जो अभी मैं आपको समझा रही थी एग्जांपल, यहाँ पे इन्होंने और इसको इलैबोरेट किया. The level of demand may be raised in number of ways. For example, the government may undertake to increase its own expenditures on goods and services. It may take steps leading to an increase in the level of private expenditure, or it may combine both measures. That means increase in public expenditure, increase in private expenditure. और अगर हम private expenditure को बढ़ाते हैं, so this may be secured by raising transfer payments. Transfer payments का मतलब हो गया पेंशन है, स्कॉलरशिप्स है, ये सब ट्रांसफर पेमेंट्स होते हैं. और रिड्यूसिंग टैक्सेस, तो ऑटोमेटिकली अगर आप टैक्स को रिड्यूस कर रहे हो यहाँ पे तो लोगों के हाथ में डिस्पोजेबल इनकम बढ़ जाएगी एंड दस इंक्रीजिंग द अमाउंट ऑफ इनकम अवेलेबल फॉर प्राइवेट यूज. सो दिस विल automatically correct the instability situation of involuntary unemployment. See, now अगर हम both private and public expenditures को बढ़ाते हैं, so an increase in public goods and service expenditures will be combined with a lesser increase in transfers or a reduction in taxes. So the magnitude of adjustment will differ in order to obtain the same result. Some measures serve to induce an independent increase in private expenditures or have pump priming effects. Others may lower private investment. Pump priming मतलब ये होता है increasing the private expenditure. So what are the instruments through which the government can motivate the private investors to spend more on the economic and social welfare. That they are called pump priming effects. But however, total expenditure on currently produced goods and services can be increased through continued fiscal action. That means either you increase public expenditure, you reduce taxes, and automatically such an increase can be obtained by increasing government expenditure or by increasing disposable income available for private expenditure. Now, this paragraph talks about another trade cycle fluctuation situation, which is depression. डिप्रेशन की हम पहले भी बात कर चुके हैं कि डिप्रेशन का इन्फ्लेशन का एक तरह से रिवर्स होता है, where you are talking about fall in every economic indicator, whether it's real output, whether it's employment, whether it's prices. So all the things are going down. Unemployment will be substantial, business will have excess capacity, that means excess supply, and the supply of additional output will be highly elastic, because then if you have excess supply already, then it will be drastically reduced. And if there is an increase in supply, it will increase initially, and increasing expenditure will be dissipated more, namely full employment is restored, but this may happen whether the interesting prices are there or not. That means if it depends upon the level of prices in the economy. But automatically, depression situation may, the government will have to inject more expenditures, because then automatically people will have excess money in their hands and the demand will rise, and this depression situation can be corrected. Now, the second rule of compensatory finance, which we did in brief, relates to a situation which assumes a situation of more or less full employment, so that the demand now produces inflation. Because already you have full employment, so you cannot employ more resources. So what will happen if there is a demand and supply cannot increase in that proportion? Rise the price will be created. So in that situation, fiscal adjustments must be made. Now, how to do that? Either taxes are increased so that the excess demand can be controlled, or transfer payments may be reduced. That means you don't give pensions, you don't reduce the pension amount, you reduce the scholarship amount, ताकि जिस अमाउंट से लोगों के हाथ में जो परचेजिंग पावर है वो बढ़ रही है, उससे डिमांड बढ़ रही है, उनको हमें दूर करना होगा, तभी हमारा इन्फ्लेशन सिचुएशन करेक्ट हो सकता है. Rates of taxation needed to reduce expenditures sufficient. More important, market structures and the behavior of power group may be such that a basic conflict arises between the objectives of price level stability and full employment. This difficulty is not peculiar to fiscal measures, but has become one of the major problems of stabilization at large. That means कि ये जो हम बात कह रहे हैं कि दो इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स हैं फिस्कल पॉलिसी के, one is taxation and the other is public expenditure. Now, if you are increasing the taxation, the government will have more revenue, and so the government can increase the public expenditures again. And if public expenditure is increasing, automatically employment will increase, incomes will increase, so demand will increase again. So there is a conflict in the sense that on the one hand, you are imposing more taxes on the people to reduce their personal disposable income and creating more public revenue for the government, right? And on the other hand, where that revenue is going to be spent back, it is going to be spent back on again those sectors only, right? So when these sectors are getting more money, automatically that means more employment will again be generated, more income will again be generated, and that income will be used either for saving or consumption. If it is invested, then it's good. But if it is consumed or it is spent on consumption goods, then automatically it's not going to contribute in the economic growth process, and it will result in stability again. So these are the major problems of stabilization at large. Now the third rule which we did, we note that maintenance of a high level of employment with price level stability does not imply a constant level of aggregate demand. अगर आपको ये दो ऑब्जेक्टिव, ट्विन ऑब्जेक्टिव पूरा करना है, एक तरफ हाई लेवल ऑफ एम्प्लॉयमेंट या फुल एम्प्लॉयमेंट को मेंटेन करना है और दूसरी तरफ जो प्राइसेस हैं उनकी स्टेबिलिटी को इंश्योर करना है, so that it doesn't result in inflation or depression situation, then it means that you will have to have a constant level of aggregate demand. It should not neither go down nor go up. Stabilization policy does not mean that the level of income is to be stabilized. On the contrary, the policy must provide for an expansion of demand commensurate with the growing capacity to produce. That means demand and supply should be in balance. It must be designed to result in a rate of growth that moves along an equilibrium path. That means economic growth process should be on a smooth growth path. It should not fluctuate, so that the higher employment and price level stability are maintained in the process of expansion. Whether it will always be possible to satisfy all three objectives remains for later consideration. That means it depends upon how the economy is behaving, how the state is implementing its compensatory finance policy, how the producers are behaving, what are the other socio-cultural problems which the country is facing. So there are external as well as internal factors. It also remains to be seen how a choice can be made between alternative rates of equilibrium growth. आपने रोस्टो स्टेजेस ऑफ ग्रोथ पढ़ा होगा डेवलपमेंट में. सो देर आर डिफरेंट स्टेजेस ऑफ ग्रोथ थ्रू विच द इकोनॉमी गोज अप एंड डाउन. सो वी हैव टू मेक अ चॉइस. जैसे अभी इंडिया की स्टेज क्या है, टेक ऑफ स्टेज है. सो वी शैल फाइंड दैट द प्रॉब्लम ऑफ ग्रोथ ऑफ लेवल for the allocation, distribution as well as stabilization branch. Till this, if you are clear, so that we can proceed. Is it clear? Okay. Now the nature of the budget plan. Budget planning अब हमें इसी की बेसिस पे करनी है. So the first function of the budget planning is the manager of the stabilization branch must appraise the level of aggregate expenditure that will be forthcoming in the absence of such a budget. This includes expenditure on goods and services by the allocation branch as well as private expenditure on investment, consumption and net exports. Since private expenditure depend on the distribution of income also, the plans of both allocation and distribution branches must be taken as given. That means you have to assume them to be already given, and then you are implementing the function of the stabilization branch in the budget document. That is the ideal situation when we are working on stabilization. Then we have to assume that the plan for allocation, that on which sectors the government is allocating what amount, how the inequality is there or equality of income and wealth distribution is there. On the basis of that, the government is trying to allocate the stability in the economy. Next job of the manager of the stabilization branch is he must estimate the level of aggregate demand needed to maintain full utilization of resources at the present level of prices. That means he has to estimate how much is the demand, how much is the total demand and how much is the total supply, and full employment of resources है कि नहीं है, ये सारी situations को उसको analyze करना होगा. And finally, he must compare this hypothetical level of demand with the level of expenditure forthcoming in the absence of a stabilization budget and provide for taxes or transfer payments to compensate for the difference. If expansion is needed, then stabilization branch will provide for transfer payments in the form of pensions, scholarships, grants, etc. If reduction is needed, then it will provide for more taxes. The stabilization branch will impose the required level of taxation. It will refrain from reducing goods and service expenditure, टैक्सेस बढ़ेंगे तो आप रिड्यूस करोगे गुड्स और सर्विस एक्सपेंडिचर को, ऑटोमेटिकली इट विल अवॉइड इंटरफियरिंग विद द सेटिस्फैक्शन ऑफ पब्लिक वांट्स. In other words, counter cyclical variations or fluctuations will be undertaken only to the extent the allocation branch finds itself confronted with such fluctuations. Since the stabilization branch does not pursue distributional objectives, because we are assuming that distributional objectives are already well defined, allocation is already done, and now the only stabilization has to be created. Its transfer payments or taxes will be proportional to the proper distribution of income as determined by the distribution branch. Now, एलोकेशन ब्रांच कैसे डिटरमिन होगा? इंडिविजुअल प्रेफरेंसेस पे. जिस भी गुड्स और सर्विस की डिमांड ज्यादा होगी उसके लिए हम सप्लाई में रिसोर्सेस को एलोकेट कर देंगे. टैक्सेस पेड टू and benefits derived from the budget of the allocation branch will not be deducted in defining the proper state of distribution. That means the budget of stabilization branch will include either taxes or transfer payments. It will never include both. टैक्सेस एंड ट्रांसफर पेमेंट्स दोनों चीजें एक साथ नहीं हो सकती. या तो आपके टैक्सेस लगेंगे और या आपका ट्रांसफर पेमेंट्स बढ़ेगा. अगर आप एक्सपेंशन पॉलिसी अपना रहे हो तो ट्रांसफर पेमेंट्स बढ़ाओगे, अगर आप कॉन्ट्रैक्शन पॉलिसी अपना रहे हो तो टैक्सेस बढ़ाओगे. यू कैन डू इंक्रीज बोथ द टैक्सेस, बोथ द थिंग्स एट द सेम टाइम. The budget of the stabilization branch will be a surplus or a deficit budget. It will be in balance only when taxes and transfers stay at zero level. So make it a point, underline this statement, that both taxes and transfers will be zero only then the stabilization branch will not have a surplus or deficit budget but a balanced budget. No, this is not very important. So the budgetary function of stabilization must be seen in the broad heading by the stabilization branch, which depends upon the restrictive, that is contractory or expansionary nature of other measures to be taken. The more that is done by other techniques, the less need to be done through the budgetary action. In this way, other techniques of stabilization policy may be readily built into framework. If tax rates are raised and the additional proceeds are upheld, the resulting effect upon the level of private expenditure will be restrictive. मतलब गवर्नमेंट ने रेवेन्यू तो मिला उसको टैक्सेस से, लेकिन उसको हम वापस खर्च नहीं कर रहे हैं इन द टर्म्स ऑफ पब्लिक एक्सपेंडिचर, सो ऑटोमेटिकली इट विल बी रिस्ट्रिक्टिव. और उसका रिजल्ट क्या होगा कि consumption expenditure will also decline because the disposable income has declined, and investment may also contract because the ratio of money supply to debt supply has been reduced, because you are introducing contractionary credit control policies. See, now effect on consumption will prove more questionable, as it now operates through a reduction in holding of debt, and the claim effect on investment will be reversed, since the withdrawal of public debt depresses the rate of interest. Public debt means the debt or loan which the government takes from its own people or from external sources. So, if we withdraw that, the amount of public debt, then automatically it depresses the rate of interest. That means the lenders who were enjoying the rate of interest, now they will not enjoy, and thus inducing investment will tend to be less restrictive, because investment induce करने के लिए हमको loan या borrowings चाहिए होती हैं, and if we withdraw those kinds of facilities, then automatically it will have a restrictive policies in place, and automatically this will be, economy will be going in downtrend. ये एक्सपेंशनरी का एग्जाम्पल है कि अगर हम एक्सपेंशनरी एक्शन को इफेक्टिव बनाना चाहते हैं तो हम न्यू मनी को इंट्रोड्यूस करेंगे, एंड मोर इनकम इज रिसीव्ड, मोर क्लेम्स आर हेल्ड, एंड हाफ न्यू मनी इज यूज्ड. All effects are mix of outstanding claims which has become more liquid. Now you will have more liquid money in your hands. This is also not important because it's a big chapter, so I'm just flicking the important ones. Now it follows from all this is a conclusion that no sharp line of distinction can be drawn between fiscal and monetary policies for stabilization. In dealing with the former, considerable attention must also be paid to the latter. That means we have to accept this fact that if we want the government policies for stabilization in place, then we have to implement a mix of fiscal and monetary policies. We can't use either fiscal or monetary policy. And the instruments of fiscal policies, as we know, taxation, public expenditure, and the other hand monetary policy, credit control, credit expansion policies by banks. So it should be a mix of them, involving different fiscal measures or combination of fiscal and debt or monetary measures. But there remains the question of which policy or which policy mix should be chosen. This decision must be made partly in terms of administrative feasibilities, but they do not decide the whole issue. Consideration must be given as well to important collateral effects. Collateral effects means effects that may differ under various approaches. That means efficiency of resource use, state of distribution, rate of growth. These are some of the important areas also which needs to be considered when we make a choice of the optimal policy. So optimal policy is also in itself a difficult matter to decide by the government. This is the whole stabilization function, which we have done in detail today. So I hope that you have understood this PPT. Diksha, please send it on the group so that they can all study it and write the notes. So I hope that this suffices. This question of the discuss the allocation, distribution, and stabilization function of the government. This is the long question of Unit 1, which you need to prepare. And else others topics which we have done, like merit bonds, the difference between public and private bonds, is all under short notes. So please try to complete that and write in your answers. You have already been given the questions in your Google Classroom also. Our internal assessments are starting from today. So 5 days you have to write, all the dates are mentioned in that message which has been put up. The questions are there. Those of you who haven't joined the Google Classroom as yet, please join it so that you can get all the information. Send your, all the rules are prescribed there, like the answer should be maximum of 2500 words. Secondly, you can't copy and paste. That means it should not be typed. You have to write it in your own handwriting.